A home can look perfect on the listing, be staged to the nines, and still be an absolute disaster in disguise. You've probably bought a home before. You're not new to real estate, but the Phoenix Scottsdale area, they've got their own unique set of problems, and most buyers don't even know what to look for. So that's what today's video is all about. Because out here in the desert, what looks like a great home can turn into a six-figure mistake if you miss a few of the big warning signs. And spoiler alert, a lot of these issues do not show up in the listing photos or even during a quick walkthrough. We are going to break it all down, outside and in, from what's above your head to what's leaking under the sink, and how your backyard orientation can fry you alive in the summertime. Now let's start outside, because the first warning sign is one you can usually spot before you walk in the front door, and that is parking. Now I know it is not sexy, but it can be sneaky and frustrating and incredibly annoying after you move in. See, out here in the Phoenix Scottsdale area, most homes have garages and driveways. It's not like we're all cramming into the same downtown city streets. But here's what catches people off guard: the HOA. A huge number of the neighborhoods within the Phoenix and Scottsdale area have HOAs, and many of them have very strict rules around parking. And when I say strict, I mean fines, warning letters, and sometimes even having your car towed. Yes, cars have been towed in the middle of the night from in front of your house, simply for being parked on the street. So when I'm walking a property with a client, I'm not just looking at the curb appeal. I'm looking at how many cars will realistically fit in the driveway. How functional is the garage? Can you actually park 2 or 3 SUVs in that garage? Or will one side of that garage be filled as a home gym or all the excess from Costco? I also check out the neighborhood layout. Where could guests park if you hosted a party? Is that parking actually close by? Because if hosting a party is something you like to do often, the lack of guest parking could get really old really fast. And here's something people rarely ask about during their home search. Can you park an RV or a boat at the house? If you can't, and many HOAs are going to say that you cannot, you need to know this before you sign anything. And even if you have an RV gate, many of the HOA rules will dictate that you cannot have anything visible over the gate. Bottom line, do not fall in love with a house only to realize that the HOA expects your third car to disappear in the middle of the night. Ask about parking always, and read the CC&Rs before it bites you later. All right, next up is the roof. Because in this climate, what's over your head is just about as important as what's inside. Now, unless it's literally raining in the house, most buyers don't really think twice about it during the showing. But let me be clear. In Phoenix, the roof is a make or break component of your future maintenance costs. And the worst part, you can't really see most of the problems while you're on the ground. So here's what I do when I'm walking up to a property. First, I always look at the fascia boards. That's the trim that's running along the edge of the roof. If I see rotting wood, peeling paint, warping, or water staining, that is my first clue that the roof is old and might need to be replaced. It also tells me that maintenance might have been neglected. And let's talk about the tiles. Just because they're there doesn't necessarily mean they're doing their job. Here in Arizona, the real concern is the underlayment paper. This is that waterproof barrier beneath the tiles. That's what breaks down in our triple-digit heat during the summer. So yes, the roof may look fine, but the underlayment could be deteriorated or failing underneath, which means you are one monsoon away from a major leak. And if you see mismatched tiles, that usually means that there has been a patch job at some point. Could be harmless, or it could be a sign that more of that is to come and that the roof really just needs to be completely replaced. Finally, if the home has solar panels, everything gets more complicated with the roof. Because when the roof eventually needs to be replaced, those panels will have to come off and go back on. And most roofing companies won't touch solar. The bottom line here is the roof is not a place to cut corners or make assumptions. Now, because roofs are such a big deal here, it doesn't matter if the roof is 15 plus years old or was just replaced yesterday. I am bringing my roofer out to check it. Now let's move from the top of the house to the walls, because they've got some secrets too. Specifically, I'm talking about the outside walls. And no, this isn't about color preference or curb appeal. What I'm looking at is what the paint, stucco, and yard are telling us about how this home has or has not been maintained. So let's start with that stucco. Now, small cracks in the stucco are normal. We live in a hot, dry climate. Stucco will flex and settle and crack, especially in older homes. But here's what's not normal: long horizontal cracks, larger gaps that spread across corners, or stair-step cracking in the blocked walls. These could be signs of foundation shifting or potential moisture issues, especially if they're near windows or doors. Now, these cracks do have to be bigger, something you could fit like a quarter in. Those little hairline cracks that you see all along the stucco walls, those are normal. The next thing I'm looking at is the paint job. If the paint is bubbling, peeling, or fading unevenly along a wall, that is not just cosmetic. It's usually a sign that the exterior of the house really needs a new paint job. And it may seem minor, but repainting the exterior of your house is not an inexpensive task. Now let's talk about the drainage. When I walk a yard, I'm always looking for spots where water might pool. Now we don't get a ton of rain here, but when we do, it tends to come all at once. Standing water near a foundation could be a red flag. It means the yards might not be properly graded. And over time, water pooling near the foundation could cause slab issues. So yeah, that little puddle could become a big issue. And then there's landscaping. And one of my biggest pet peeves are trees planted too close to the house with branches that are touching the roof. This is such an easy fix. See, if the branches are actually touching the roof, if we get any wind, those branches are going to displace those roof tiles. And that displacement of the tiles is what allows the sun and the rain to get in and destroy that underlayment paper. And this is how roofs can start leaking much earlier. And finally, outside, I'm going to look at the HVAC drain lines. Now, these are usually coming off the side of the house. And there's two of them. There's one up high and one down low. The one down low is supposed to drip. That is normal. The one up high is not supposed to drip. So if there is staining all along the side of the house from the top drain line, that tells me that the system has backed up before. That condensate pan has backed up before. And it could be a small issue or a sign of a previous leak that may or may not have been repaired. The exterior of the home tells you a lot if you know what to look for. Next, let's step out back and talk about walls, fences, and shared boundaries. Because what's yours might also be your neighbor's problem. In the Phoenix and Scottsdale area, most homes don't have traditional wood fences. Instead, they've got concrete block walls, sometimes paired with view fencing, especially near washes, golf courses, or open space. These structures are low maintenance until they're not. The first thing I'm looking for back here is cracking or leaning. Now, again, these small cracks in these block walls is normal, but if you see large separation gaps, blocks shifting outward, or long stair-stepped cracks, especially on that wall that's acting as a retaining wall on your neighbor's property that's a little higher than yours, that's when we need to ask more questions. I've walked properties where the back wall is leaning out and it kind of looks like it's starting to fall. But even with that, it doesn't always mean that it's failing structurally, but it absolutely means we are going to bring in a structural engineer to take a look at it and answer any of your questions. Because your general home inspector, they're going to flag it and then tell you to get an expert's opinion. And at that point, you'll want someone who knows exactly what they're looking at. Next up, I want to talk about the efflorescence. That's that white chalky stuff that sometimes comes up on block walls. This happens when water moves through the concrete and brings salt to the surface. Now, the efflorescence is not always a problem, and it's often really just cosmetic. But if it's heavy and widespread, it could mean that your neighbor is overwatering on the other side of the wall, and all that moisture is coming through to your side, which brings up another issue: shared wall responsibility. If that wall ever needs to be repaired or replaced, you're likely splitting the cost with your neighbor, if they agree to it. Now, some HOAs include rules in their CC&Rs about this, and they outline who's responsible. Others, you're on your own, negotiating with Bob next door, who swears his landscaping is barely watering anything. So yes, your backyard matters, not just for the views, but for the headaches it can cause. The Phoenix and Scottsdale area have a lot of beautiful homes that back to wide roads, intersections, or even freeways. And during a showing, you might not hear much, especially if you're inside and the AC is humming along, or you're in the backyard and there's a fountain or a waterfall going. But let me tell you something, you have to test it. Whenever I'm going out to look at homes with a client, I do two things. One, I look to see what homes are going to be backing or close to major roads, because maybe the home doesn't back up directly to a road, but it's close enough to one that I know we need to be paying attention to it when we're in the house. And number two, I want to turn off every backyard fountain. I want my clients to hear exactly what the backyard is going to sound like on a normal day, because I've seen this happen. Buyers fall in love with a house, move in, and realize that every Friday it is like NASCAR behind their house. And here's the thing, you cannot fix the road noise. You can't move the road, and you're not going to build a sound sound wall. And unless you're planning to live with your windows shut and music playing 24/7, this will affect the enjoyment of your home and eventually the resale value of your home too. I have had clients move here from big cities where living next to or near a busy road was not a big deal and very common. And they decided to buy a home that is on or near a busy street here against my advisement. But it's not my money and I am not living there. So what do I recommend? Always visit the home at different times of the day. Weekday mornings, weekend afternoons, even late in the evening. You want to know exactly what you're getting because road noise isn't just annoying, it's forever. And it can always get worse with more traffic. All right, let's talk about something that can look great in photos, but absolutely ruin the quality of life if you don't understand it. And that is which direction your home faces. More importantly, which direction does your backyard face? Out here in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area, this matters a lot. Now, in other parts of the country, people rarely even ask about this. But here, let me tell you, a west-facing backyard can turn your patio into a blast furnace by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Really, this happens. You will walk out to water plants and feel like you just opened the oven door. And if you're someone who likes spending time outside, hosting, grilling, enjoying a glass of wine on the patio, you need to know how the sun is going to hit that space. That dreamy home with a sparkling pool might look amazing at noon, but fast forward to July at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and that sun is just sitting there, cooking your patio furniture and mocking your outdoor lifestyle dreams. Now, that's not to say that you can't find a west-facing backyard that will be okay, but you have to know what you're getting into and prepare for it. You might even need to budget for some shade structures, a misting system, or even a full patio enclosure if you want to make that space usable during the hottest times of the year. And let's not forget about your electric bill. More direct afternoon sun can mean that your AC is working overtime just to keep things cool, especially if there's any large windows on the backside of your house. So yes, orientation matters. It's not just about aesthetics. It's about livability and long-term comfort living in the desert. When I tour homes with clients, I am always checking the direction, the angle of the sun, and what kind of shade solutions are already in place. It's just one more way I make sure you know exactly what you're getting before you make an offer. Now let's talk about pools, because again, out here in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area, they're not really just a nice bonus. They're practically a requirement, and a pool can be an absolute dream or a money pit, all depending upon how it's been maintained. So here's what I'm looking for when we walk a property. First, I'm looking at the surface. If the pool is plaster, I'm scanning to see if there's any rust from any rebar coming through the plaster. Rust spots coming through often mean the rebar underneath is starting to show. And it's not just ugly, it's expensive to repair. Now, if it's PebbleTech, which is more durable, I'm still looking for cracks, especially if the house is older. And here's the thing, about 10 to 15 years ago, a lot of people were using rolled edged PebbleTech, where the PebbleTech goes up and over the edge of the pool. It looks nice, but PebbleTech was not meant to be exposed to the sun like that. So those edges, they are the first place to crack. The next thing I check is the water line. Is there a heavy calcium buildup? A little is normal. This is Arizona and our water is really hard. But heavy buildup, especially if it's flaky or crusty or staining the tile, this tells me there has been some deferred maintenance. I also look to see if I can tell if there have been any previous repairs. Patchy PebbleTech, mismatched tiles. It could all just be cosmetic, or it could be hiding a bigger problem. Then I look at the equipment pad. I check to see if the ground underneath is wet. If it is, that means that there's probably a leak. And having a leak at your pool equipment is not the end of the world. We're dealing with water and it's often that they leak, and it's fixable. But if I see stains, corrosion, or really weathered parts, this tells me that the pool might also have some maintenance issues. If the pool has an in-floor cleaning system, I'm looking to see if all the pop-up heads are there. Missing heads equals uneven cleaning equals more manual work, and possibly a repair bill. When I spot any of these issues, I will usually ask my clients if they would like a dedicated pool inspection, because the general inspector will only do a surface level inspection, where a pool contractor can go much deeper. Pools are amazing, but they are also expensive, and I don't want that pool to become an immediate issue for you once you move in. All right, now let's talk about solar panels. You see them on the house and you think, nice, lower electric bills, good for the planet. What's not to love? But hold on, because solar here in Phoenix is a lot more complicated than people realize. First, if a house has solar, I am asking 4 questions right away. Is it owned or leased? If it's leased, is the lease paid off? Did the seller replace the roof before they put the solar panels on? Does the solar actually cover the entire bill, or are they still gonna have a bill, especially in the summer? Because here's what I've seen. Buyers fall in love with the idea of solar, only to find out they're still paying $250 a month for electricity in July, on top of a $200 a month solar lease payment. That's not a savings. That's just 2 bills instead of 1. Now, I mentioned the roof before, and this is where things can get ugly really fast. I've had clients buy homes where the seller told them, don't worry, the roof was just replaced before we put the solar on. Sounds great, right? Except here's the issue. The solar company tells the seller to use their preferred roofing company. That roofer comes out and replaces the roof for somewhat of a discounted cost because they get so much business from the solar company. Then as soon as the solar goes back onto the roof, the warranty for the roof goes away. Now, here's a real kicker. If the home has solar and the roof needs to be replaced later, those panels have to come off and go back on. And guess what? Most roofing companies won't touch the solar panels. You'll need a separate contractor to remove those solar panels and put them back on. And that can cost tens of thousands of dollars. I had one buyer pay $45,000 for a new roof, solar removal, and replacement. That is not an exaggeration. So yes, solar can be amazing if it's done right. Own system, lower bills, great. But lease system with unclear terms, expired warranties, and minimal benefits, that's a red flag. You can't always assume that solar is a perk. Do the math, ask questions, get documentation, and always bring in a roofer to evaluate how the roof looks under the solar panels. All right, now we're diving into the stuff that is not sexy, but will absolutely ruin your day and your budget if you don't check them. We're talking about your air conditioning system and your water heater. Let's start with the air conditioning system. Phoenix summers are no joke. Triple digits every day for months. Your AC isn't just a comfort item. It is life support. So when I tour a home, I am always going to look at the condensing unit. That's the box that's sitting outside next to the house, usually along the side, sometimes in the back, and sometimes on the roof, which makes it really hard to check. First, I'm looking at the label on the unit. Most manufacturers have a sticker on it that will kind of give me an idea of the year that it was built. If I see something that's 15 years old, that system's getting up there in age, and it's something we need to get more information about. Then I look at the condition of the unit itself. Is the metal housing faded, rusted, or damaged? Is the fan rail on top corroded or bent? This tells me it hasn't just aged. It's been exposed to the elements without proper care. But here's the thing. Just because a system is older doesn't mean it's dead. A well-maintained unit can last 25 years plus here, especially if the filters are being changed regularly and the system's being serviced. Now let's move on to the water heater. I do the same thing and check the manufacturer's sticker on this to tell me when the water heater was manufactured. And again, that's usually on the front of the water heater. It'll tell you the production year. Might not be the same year that it was installed, but at least it will give you a start. Now, many plumbers will also put a sticker right on the front of the hot water heater that will actually tell you the month and the year that they installed it. Water heaters typically last 8 to 12 years. Beyond that, you can kind of be pushing your luck, especially if it's a traditional tanked model, not the tankless. I also check for any signs of rust, water spots, or past leaks around the base. That tells me if the unit is already failing, but it can also tell me if the previous water heater did fail and this is a newer unit. Both of these systems can be expensive to replace, so it's critical to know what you're walking into. Okay, let's talk about one of the least glamorous, but most important inspections that you can do when you're buying a home. That is the sewer scope. Here's the deal. Most of the homes in the Phoenix area, especially those that weren't just built yesterday, are hitting that 30+ year mark. And that's when sewer issues start showing up. But the problem is they're hidden underground. And a sewer scope is when a licensed plumber sends a camera down the main sewer line to check for cracks, roots, blockages, or collapsed pipes. It's a quick inspection and can save you thousands in surprise repairs. I know what some people probably think. We're in the desert. There aren't big trees like the Pacific Northwest. How bad can it be? Well, bad. We do have root intrusions here, especially from some mature trees. And if that wasn't enough, our soil is full of expansive clay and big rocks, which can actually pinch or shift your pipes over time. That creates weak spots where waste backs up or lines collapse completely. And let me tell you, a full sewer line replacement, not cheap. These inspections are especially important in older homes that have cast iron pipes. So yes, I always recommend a sewer scope when you're under contract. It's fast, it's affordable, and it gives you that peace of mind before you close. You do not want to find out you bought a plumbing nightmare on day one. Next, let's head inside for what might be the most overlooked part of the showing. All those details hidden in plain sight. Just because a home looks good at first glance doesn't mean it's been cared for properly. I first start with the overall feel. Is there pride of ownership? I'm not talking about quartz countertops and trendy lighting. I mean, are the vents clean? Is the baseboard trim scuffed and dirty or sharp and painted? Are the door handles solid or barely hanging on? Those small details tell me how the home has been treated and how well it's been maintained over time. This is also where I'm going to be looking at the ceiling to see if there are any signs of previous leaks. I'm also going to really pay attention to the flooring. With carpet, I'm checking for ripples, wrinkles, or discoloration. Stretched out carpet that's bunching in some places may need to be reinstalled or completely replaced. With wood floors, this is what I want to know. Is it real hardwood that you can refinish or engineered? Or is it just a thin laminate that's going to bubble as soon as someone spills a drink on it? And if it's luxury vinyl plank, I'm listening for tapping or hollow sounds. A few of those spots might be normal, but if it feels like you're walking on bubble wrap, it wasn't installed correctly. Then there's tile. This is where lazy flippers love to cut corners. I check for lippage. You know, those uneven tiles where you could actually stub your toe when you're walking. I'm also looking at the grout lines. Are they consistent and clean? Or does it look like someone rushed it the night before the photos were gonna be taken? And here's one of my favorite tricks. If there's a rug in the room, I will lift up the corner of the rug to see what the grout color is supposed to be. You'd be surprised how many homes look clean until you see what that grout color used to be. The windows, if there's fog or condensation between the panes of glass, it means the seals are broken. It's fixable, but it's not free. And under every sink, I'm looking for leaks, either past or present. This is one of the easiest spots to miss, and one of the most common places for mold to grow. Buying a home isn't just about what looks good, it's about what holds up. Now let's talk about those flips. Because when the whole house is brand new, I am instantly suspicious. Because I see this happen all the time. You walk into a house that's been totally remodeled, brand new floors, trendy cabinets, subway tiles for days, and it looks amazing. But then I walk in and my radar goes off. And I start looking very closely. Because here's the truth. Not all flips are created equal. Some are done by experienced investors, the ones who hire licensed contractors and actually get permits. Others are slapped together in a weekend with materials from the clearance bin and labor that was paid in gas money. Let me give you a few red flags that I always look out for. Number one are the flooring transitions. If you walk from one room to the next and feel like you just stepped up a curb, that's usually because they laid new flooring over the top of old flooring. It's a shortcut and it's not usually great. Number two is sloppy caulking around sinks, tubs, and backsplashes. If the caulking looks messy, uneven, or like it was done with someone's finger in the dark, that tells me a lot about the quality of the rest of the work. Number three is cabinet alignment. Open the drawers. Do they close evenly? Are the gaps uniform? Crooked doors or uneven drawers usually mean cheap cabinets and rushed installs. Number four is mismatched materials. If the granite on the island doesn't match the perimeter or the baseboards look different in every room, that's usually a sign that this flip was more Frankenstein than functional. And then there's the big one, unpermitted work. This is huge in Phoenix. Garage conversions, room additions, pop-up bathrooms in weird corners of the house. If a home has been reconfigured, especially recently, I'm asking for permits. And if the seller says to me, oh, that was done by the previous owners, that is not a free pass. We still need to understand what was done, when it was done, and whether it was done safely and legally. Because here's the thing, most buyers fall in love with the finishes. That's the emotional part. They walk in and see new and assume good, but new paint doesn't mean new plumbing. New tile doesn't mean the slab underneath is sound. An updated kitchen might mean that some guy installed new doors on 25-year-old cabinet boxes. So yes, flips can be great, but they can also be a trap wrapped in quartz countertops. When I walk through a flip, I am looking at all the details, lines, transitions, materials, workmanship. And if something doesn't feel right, we dig deeper or we walk away. You deserve to love how the house looks and also trust how it was built. Buying a home in the Phoenix Scottsdale area isn't just about granite countertops, big backyards, and pools that sparkle on Zillow. It's about knowing what's hidden underneath the surface. Because these homes, they might look gorgeous, gorgeous. But some of them are quietly waiting to drain your wallet the moment you move in. Now, if you want to learn about all of the HOA nightmares, you're going to want to watch this video. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.